Hello, I'm doing another one of these commentary things for my speed runs. I'm gonna mute that real quick. So you can see that I just got another PB. This one being a 207, which is just about 50 seconds faster than my first PB of 256. It's important to note that these are all timed in real time, not with the in-game timer. And yeah. So I know during the first one, I mentioned the first part where I show off the rocket going on a bit too long, and I do it again. It takes a long time again. This time going until about 48 seconds. So that is when it begins, just at 48 seconds. So I lift off. I use 4 times time warp this time. And I decided to switch back so I could have a cue as to when the rockets here would burn out, so I could stage a bit faster. I still didn't stage all that fast, I think. Yeah, that wasn't really that good. I didn't stage all that fast. And that part obviously could have been better, where I accidentally used normal time warp instead of fizz warp. This part is the good part, because I, immediately managed to get a really good trajectory right there. I'm very proud of that. One mistake I do is I don't go all the way, like immediately. I go to 100, and then like a second later I go up to 1,000 times time warp, when I could go 10,000 times time warp, which would save a lot of time. In fact, I might have been able to get it too flat just by going up to 10,000 times time warp instead of 100 and then 1,000 times. I probably could have gotten it too flat on that alone, because that whole thing is like 10 seconds from when I start the time warp until I enter the moon's SOI. So that could have saved enough time to get a 2 flat. Again, just that alone. I could easily also optimize the staging. Could probably do that faster, and I could probably get a sub 2 on that alone. This could probably, me burning to the moon could probably also be optimized a little bit, but it's not like terrible. It's not nearly as bad as it was in my 256. That was just, oh, that was rough. And it was even better because I managed to do it at 4 times time warp instead of at, I think it was 1 times time warp. So it's even better. Talk about that. Then I go to the moon's sphere of influence. It takes a bit for me to find the moon, so I'm at 50 times time warp for a bit. I'm going to try and optimize that. Not really finding the moon, but time warping up really fast, because I use that. Specifically the ground option instead of the sea level option, so I know how far I am above the ground instead of above sea level. And that becomes really important when I realize I'm going to be landing on the dark side of the moon, where I can't see shit. But that is coming up in a bit. Yeah, around here I start realizing, oh boy, I'm probably going to be landing on the dark side of the moon. As you see here, another rookie mistake. I immediately slow down to 1 times time warp instead of 5 or 10 times time warp. Mainly due to me being worried about crashing into the moon, but still. So 2:0. It's based on when I first slow down to orient myself, so around 2 minutes in is when I will say I officially start the moon landing. And then, of course, when I actually hit the moon at, what is it, 2:55, I believe. That's 55 seconds. Certainly better than the 1 minute and 40-second moon landing for my 2:56, but still not great. I could easily, maybe not easily, but I could, with a few attempts, I could definitely optimize this moon landing, because that is the most problematic part right there, is the moon landing. So that lasts a bit. I actually do go for a suicide burn-ish strat. I didn't get it very optimized, the suicide burn. But you'll notice that, vector engines are significantly better at suicide burning than the, I believe it was the Reliant. Not 100% sure that I had on my 256. The Reliant, I think it was, had around a 4.2 thrust to weight ratio, which basically higher than 1 means you lift off. Basically, at 1, the force your rocket generates is exactly canceling out gravity on Earth or Kerbin, or on just the body in general. And on Kerbin, I believe, it had a thrust to weight ratio of 4.2, which means the rocket was generating 4.2 Gs of acceleration, which on the moon I found out wasn't really enough for the speed run, so I switched over to the vector engine, which supplied a hefty, roughly 13 thrust to weight ratio, which meant it generated 13 Gs of deceleration at max throttle. So, yeah, it's pretty powerful, and it's actually really good for suicide burns, in my opinion. It's actually really good. I really, after having performed this run, I like it for suicide burns. Obviously, it needs to be suicide. Like, I need to go as close to the ground as I can before I start slowing the hell down, which is actually kind of what I do. I was less than a kilometer above the ground, but at 200 meters per second. So it was a decent suicide burn. Definitely the closest to a real suicide burn I've ever come. But obviously, it could definitely still be better. So that takes a while. You can tell I become increasingly anxious to the point, actually, at 2:57, it is not, yeah, at there, I go to max throttle for just a tiny bit too long. If I had pressed X just a little bit earlier, I would have hit the ground and landed at roughly 2:45, 2:46, which would have been a sub 2. But then I bounce because I didn't press X fast enough, and then I hit the ground at 253, 254. But I'm not really technically landed until 255, hence the 207. So then I time warp around to the day side of the moon. So you can see that, things did in fact survive. And that is kind of about it. So lessons to take away from this is stage a little faster, use 10,000 times time warp when, after you have burned to go to the moon, because the game automatically slows you down to 50 times time warp when you enter, yes, well, I have another object, so I don't actually really need to worry about going all the way up to 10,000 times time warp. So use 10,000 times time warp, it will save time. Generally react a little faster, and also, go a bit more extreme with the suicide burn. So yeah, hope that was somewhat informative, so that's kind of about it.